Hi, today I would like to discuss with you what truly being a follower of Yahshua looks like. We're told in Acts that it was first at Antioch, in our English translations, that they were first called Christians. Now, I've studied that word some because I had some questions about it. Depending on how familiar you are with the Messianic or Sabbath-keeping movements, you probably have run into people who have been uncomfortable with being called Christians. And so I had some questions about what did that actually mean, but as I dug into it, of course, Christ is just an English transliteration of a Greek word, Christos, which literally means anointed one. And that is, I would say, the dynamic equivalent of the Hebrew word Mashiach, which is the anointed one. And so from that aspect, I began to realize that there was something to this idea of being a Christian, or what that literally meant when they used that was a follower of Christ, or in our instance, a follower of Mashiach, a follower of Yahshua the Messiah. And so that got me thinking about what is a follower of Yahshua? What does that look like? Does it look like what we have seen exhibited in the church before us, and does it look like us as individuals? So I'd like to read you a story out of Mark to start with. You may think this is a little disjointed, but I'll explain as we go on. But Mark chapter 10, starting in verse 35. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. "Teacher," they said, "we want you to do for us whatever we ask." "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. They replied, "Let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory." "You don't know what you're asking," Yahshua said. "Can you drink the cup I drink or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with?" "We can," they answered. Yahshua said to them, "You will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with. But to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared." So, this story, at first glance, doesn't seem to have a whole lot to it. But there's a lot happening here. It's this first statement that they ask. We want you to do whatever we ask of you. How many of us come to Yahweh asking Him, what can we do for you? How can we, out of love, serve you? And how many of us come to Him saying, we want you to do what you ask for us? I think this is the first key to understanding what is a follower. Think about that once. I'm sure you've had occasion to discuss with people and had the topic get around to salvation and accepting Yahshua the Messiah. And the statement that people will ask is, well, have you given your heart to Yahshua? And of course, being good Christian or good faith-based people that we are, we'll answer that with yes, of course, I've given my life to Yahshua. So the question that begs is, if you've given your life to Yahshua, then what part did you keep? If you've given Him your life, is there any part of that wasn't included? You begin to see what I'm discussing here. We're talking about maybe fine nuances of word, but it talks in Hebrews about us being slaves to sin or slaves to righteousness. Once again, how much choice does a slave have about the even minutest details of his own life? Does he decide where he's going to sleep at night? Does he decide what food he's going to eat? Does he decide what job he's going to do? Or as Yahshua said, who is the pot to tell the potter what it'll be used for? So, they asked him, they came to him in a typical approach that humanity comes to Yahweh with, saying, we want something from you. This is how the brothers, James and John, came to Yahshua. And they said, we want one of us to sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. And he said, you don't know what you're asking. What I realized as I read this is, we come to Yahweh frequently, wanting something from Him. Wanting deliverance from our sins, admittedly. The guilt that comes with the sins more frequently than not. The sin itself we find quite a bit of fun most of the time. We're not that interested in being delivered from the parts we find pleasurable. It's the guilt and the shame that goes with it that we'd like to be delivered from. And then, I think the response that if we could hear it that our Master frequently says is, you don't know what you're asking. You don't know the cost of what you've requested. So, that said, how do we get from this place of wanting deliverance and freedom and wanting the good things Yahweh has to offer, and then wholeheartedly and joyfully accepting the path that's necessary to get us there? I'd like to ask a question now, that obviously a rhetorical question, seeing as none of you can respond without making a note at the end of this video, and that's this: what did it cost Yahshua to come here? He left his place in glory. It says that before the world was, I am. That's what Yahshua had to say. So he was physically with the Father in glory, and he left that to come here for what? Think about his life once. Did he live in a palace? Did he have servants waiting upon him? No, none of these things. He lived a very meager existence. He was born into a pauper's family. You understand that? When they went to the temple to make the offering, it says that was required by Moses after his birth, and they offered a turtle dove. That was the offering that was allowed if you were too poor to sacrifice a lamb. So he was born into the lowest echelons of society. So he left untold and unfathomable wealth, riches, and just the very presence of Yahweh to come here to this earth. So that question, what did it cost him? It ultimately cost him everything. He came here, lived a life of poverty, and then died at the end of it. So, that being the case, what does it cost us to follow Yahshua? He told us. This is not some question without an answer to it. Luke 14 is where we have to go for this answer. Listen to this as I read it, and then ask yourself, is this the conditions upon which you have accepted Yahshua as your master? Large crowds were traveling with Yahshua. This is Luke 14, starting verse 25, by the way. And turning to them, he said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? For if he lays the foundation and is not able to finish, everyone who sees it will ridicule him, saying, this fellow began to build and was not able to finish. Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Will he not first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he is not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off, and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is neither fit for the soil nor for the manure pile. It is thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear.